Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, back again to do another little lesson, this time looking at the subject of inversions and showing you everything you need to know about chord inversions. So in the intro there I just played The Effect by a prog band called Act, well worth checking out. I always loved that chorus, and the reason when I dug down and transcribed it is because there's a very slick use of inversions in there. And the more and more you dig into music you like, the more and more you'll probably find that there's a lot of cool chord inversions that are played in order to help make chord progressions sound as smooth as possible. We'll talk about that in future, I'm sure. So, today I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know about chord inversions. This is actually part one. In this first part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the physical playing of chord inversions on the guitar, how to finger them, and the theory behind them, of course. In the second part, I will give you examples of songs. I'll show you how I use these chord inversions in my own compositions to hopefully springboard some of your own ideas. So if you are interested in that, make sure you go down there, hit that subscribe button, and you'll be notified when the next part goes up. So what is a chord inversion? Well, inversion, or to invert, to turn something on its head. It's a good way of looking at things actually, because that's what a chord inversion is. It's where you take a chord and you turn it on its head. Okay, so a chord has more than two notes, so you could invert two notes. That's a good place to start. If I took the notes C and G, power chord, I could invert that by putting the G on the bottom and you get this. That's actually an inversion. But what we're going to be looking at today is triads, major triads and inversions. So, if we were to take a C major chord, a C major triad, that contains the notes C, E and G. And those three notes can be played in many places on the guitar. You can play it like that or like that. Lots of fun ways that you can play the three notes of a C major triad. And I think of those as all being C, but an inversion would be where we were to play a note other than C in the bass. And when I say bass, I mean low register. So when you look at a chord voicing like this, for example, to me, I still think of that as being C, because although the lowest note isn't a C, I don't think of this as being an actual bass note. I'd play that and expect the bass player to be playing a low C. So we can take any C major chord voicing and put one of the notes that isn't C in the bass, and you get an inversion. Let's take a look at how we can do that. We'll talk about how you name them and how we can interpret these on sheets of music, and then you can go out and play as many of them as you possibly can. It's very simple when you dig down into it. So if we take the G major chord, we'll do this starting in this E bar shape, 3rd fret, chord diagram on screen right now. I'm sure you've played this before. This is a G major chord, and it contains the notes G, B and D. G, D, G, B, D and G. So they're not in order, but all of the notes are there, and the low note, the bass note, is G. So this could be called a G major chord. Root position G major chord. No inversion here. We could play an inversion of this chord by putting, for example, the B in the bass. Now when you do this, what you have is a first inversion chord. You've taken the chord and you have inverted it one, turned it on its head one, good way of thinking of it, or not. So the B would now be in the bass. Now lots of ways that you can do this, and that's really the point. When I'm playing inversions, strumming inversions, or just working out ways to play through chord progressions that I'm composing or working on, I like to have lots of things at my disposal. And the way that I kind of think of these is actually just based on our small 3-note triad voicings. So if we play, rather than this big bar chord, we can just play these 3 notes, G, B and D. Simple chord, still a G major triad. Now when I play those 3 notes, I can now use my first finger to play the B note here on the 2nd fret of the A string, and this will give us a G over B, or G/B. 'B. 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 'B So here's our G major, and here's a G/B. Now let's quickly talk about naming conventions for these, because this is certainly where I was the most confused when I was learning about inversions. So you've probably seen lots of chord inversions in your time. D/F sharp, very common. I'm sure you've seen that. If you've played Freebird, right there. If you've played Back in Black, that's a D/F sharp. I was always very confused about what that meant when I was learning, but now I fully understand that. The tip is to eliminate the word slash. We need to think of it like a fraction, because I don't think Slash played many of these chords. That's a terrible joke. It should never be repeated. When we look at chord inversions, if you think of them more like a fraction, one letter over another, things become a lot clearer. I can think of the chord G/B and say, rather than G/B, I want to say G over B. G over B. Because that's what we have. A G triad being played over the top of a B bass note. And this is going to be true of any inversion. If I play G over D, we'd have this. That's a G triad with a D bass note. So G/D, but we say G over D. So we've got our first chord inversion under our belt. The next way that we could think of this same chord out of this first position is actually to shift up and play the B here on the 7th fret. When we do this, we play 7 on the E, 5 on the D, and 7 on the G. It's another great way to play G over B. Easy one to see as well. Sometimes you'll see that one played like this. That's those same three notes, 7, 5, and 7, but we're also adding 8 on the B string, so you get this. It's another G over B chord. So this would be our root position, and this is our first inversion. The second inversion would be where we invert again. We'll put the 5th in the bass now. So that was a D note. Now I played this a second ago. Again, there's a couple of ways of playing this, but the first way we'll look at it is like this. So what am I doing here? Well, this is really out of a C bar form. Like your open C chord, cage system. But we're, instead of playing the root note on the A string, I'm going to play the D down here. Let me break down what that is. So I've got a triad on the middle 3 strings again. I say middle, it's not really middle, but it's what I think of it as. So that's 9, 7, and 8 on the D, G, and B. And then I can use my little finger to play 10 on the low E. Now to me this is a different position from where I was a second ago. Before, I think of this as being an extension of the E shape, or shape 1. But when I move here, now in my mind I've actually changed position. Now I'm playing out of the C shape of the cage system. Not my best. So, there's my chord. When I'm in this position, I could also take that same triad on the D, G, and B strings, and I could put the B in the bass as well. So this would also be a G triad over a B bass note. I could do that on the top strings as well. I could take these 3 notes. Sorry. That's a G triad. I could take those 3 notes and put that B in the bass. carried away. It's one of those things, you hear something you want to play. Shouldn't do that. Naughty Levi. So, a couple of chord inversions. Again, just to remind you, this one. This is a root position G major triad. This is a G over B. This is also a G over B. Now we have a G over D. But in this C position, we could also play another G over B. I'm not particularly fond of this voicing. Sometimes you see that played without the third finger, played like this. It's a great chord voicing. I'm trying to think of somewhere where you might hear that. In the middle section of Everybody Dance by Chic. It's right there. It's a nice chord. I like that chord. Robin Ford talks about that on one of his videos as well, though he names it wrong. It's a first inversion major chord with the 9 sidetracked. Anyway, so up to here. Now we could also move into the next triad position, that A shape, and we could literally just take that G major chord, A shape, and I could put that D bass note in the bottom. And again, we've got an inversion there. This is a G over D. And I guess one more that you could play would be the same triad, but put the B in the bottom on the A string, 14th fret. Name that artist. So that's a basic introduction to how I might finger these inversions. It's very important to get to grips with those, being able to play these are all ways that I could play a G, and they're just inversions of. Now what I would recommend is taking each one of those chord positions and getting comfortable with C and G, C major and G major, because they fit well on top of each other. I'll just show you what I mean. So when I'm playing G here, C would be here. Now you can take G up to C via that first inversion chord. Now doesn't that sound great? Always getting carried away, shouldn't do that. So what we're getting to grips with is just G and C, being able to move between G, play that first inversion of G, so G over B, and then you'll notice that that B bass note will resolve or move up one semitone to C. And that sounds good. If you want to make a nicer chord progression out of it, you could play C and then C minor. That would give you this. Nice little exercise that. And that's really all that I have for you in part 1. You should be comfortable before you move on to the second part of this, just playing the inversions of any given chord. So I'm just going to do that real quickly now for you. I'll play G, I will play C, and I will play D in each of their inversions. So G would be this. C would be this. And then D again would be this. I know a few more voicings. Oopsie. Carried away as usual. So, what do you think about that? Does that make sense? Probably not. I rambled a bit there, but I was having fun with things. It's been a while since I've recorded and I want to have some fun. So I had some fun. Music has to be fun, right? Do you have any questions about these chord inversions? Can you get those chord fingerings under your fingers? Can you remember these so you can use them when trying to play songs? Go away and practice them. I promise that they will come in handy for playing solo guitar, for arranging for a band. Kind of the crux here is that this doesn't just have to be used when playing the guitar. It's great for arranging. It's great for writing bass parts for your bass player if you write the bass parts in your band. So go away and practice them, and then you'll come back for part 2. I'm just going to say a huge thank you to these people over here. These guys are my Patreon supporters over on patreon.com. They support me for a $10 or more tier. If you would like to join that list of awesome people, you can do so for $10. If you don't, that's also cool. Patreon just helps me make more videos. It helps me have some money that I can use to spend on nice gear for videos to make my videos better. So these people are awesome. They help me do that. Thanks very much, guys. If you would like to check me out on Patreon, you can do so by clicking this button up here. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking this button down here. And there's 2 more of my videos, here and here. I do hope that you find something you enjoy. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, tell your friends, and I will see you for another video soon. Laters.